Hi guys, I hope you're all doing good. I do understand the anxiety, I do understand the nervousness, but learn to enjoy that feeling. Okay, I know that it is not as easy as I say, but you have to learn to live with it. You have to learn to manage it, and then you have to learn to enjoy it. Only then you can emerge successful. I hope you enjoyed the places in news and the science and technology topics that we have released. It was a very hard task for me to research such widespread and give you the list. So I hope you're going to make good use of it. This video is mainly for the environment topics. Again, I've done a lot of research to give you this list of topics that are very important to you. So what you have to do is mark the topic, write down whatever important points that I tell in this particular video, and do your own research for 15 to 20 minutes on a particular topic. I want you to do it on your own. Go to the genuine websites, go to the genuine places and try to take the information, especially the factual information that can be asked by UPSC. Again, to repeat, whenever the question is asked on a common topic that everyone knows that it is going to come, the factual information from the topic will be at a greater depth. So you should have researched and got that greater depth in the topic. If the topic is very rare, it is unheard of, then the information that is demanded from that particular topic will be at a superficial level. So I hope that you have this orientation done and you should know where to research how much. If the topic is very common, then go a little bit in depth. If the topic is very rare and if it is asked, then superficial information is very much enough. So I hope you understood this. Let's get on with the first topic of the day. The first topic and the theme of today's first topic is climate change. You should have a very good idea about anything and everything relating to climate change, because a question can definitely come on climate change. So the first thing that we have to discuss is the COP28. That is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change that happened in Dubai, UAE in 2023. So what were all the different processes that took place in this particular conference of parties 28 is something that you should have an idea. So let me just give you a brief of what has happened so that you do that extra research to get that factual dimensions on the topics. Okay, the first and foremost thing that happened in the COP28 is the first global stock take was done. Now, this global stock take is similar to a report card of performance of all the countries in mitigating the effects of climate change. So, this first stock take or the report card was assessed in this COP28 for the very first time. This ideology of the first stock take was first initiated in the Conference of Parties 21 2015, and it would always be assessed every 5 years. So this was the first time that the stock take was done in 2023, and this is again the first important breakthrough in the COP28. The second breakthrough is operationalization of loss and damage fund. Okay, now the World Bank will act as an interim host for a period of 4 years. However, though it acts as an interim host, there will be an independent secretariat that will manage this fund. Okay, and you should understand what is this loss and damage fund. You should understand how it is evolved. It started off, loss and damage fund as an idea started off in Warsaw in Conference of Party 19 2013, and you should always have the trajectory of from Warsaw in 2013 to Dubai 2023, how from COP19 to COP28 this loss and damage fund has evolved. Finally, in COP28 of UAE, this operationalization of loss and damage fund is done. So again, have some good amount of information on this loss and damage fund. Okay, the next is Santiago Network. This was again also finalized in the COP28 of 2023. Now this Santiago Network is basically a technical assistance that is given to highly vulnerable nations to climate change. Okay, now this Santiago Network is a network that will function under the United Nations Office on Disaster Risk Reduction and the United Nations Office for Project Services. And these two will act as a host for Santiago Network for a period of 5 years with a renewal of every 5 years. So this is mainly what is Santiago Network. Okay, again, when did this Santiago Network first come into picture? How was this evolution, and why is this important? Is something that you have to research on your own. So this is the third thing that has come out as an outcome of COP28. The next fourth thing that has come out of this COP28 is global goal on adaptation. Okay, so this global goal on adaptation is a philosophy that was brought out in COP21 of 2015. Okay, now everyone is more concentrated on mitigation effects of Paris Agreement, but this is something that is overshadowed. In this Paris Agreement, there was also a global goal on adaptation. So this was for the first time in COP28 that they have agreed to also focus on adaptation on an equal basis with mitigation. Hence, global goal on adaptation is also a very good outcome of the COP28. It helps to enhance the world's adaptive capacity, enhance the resilience, and reduce vulnerability. Okay, the next is global cooling pledge. This is also an outcome of COP28. What is this global cooling pledge? It reduces the cooling emissions by at least 68% by 2050. That is the main aim of global cooling pledge. Now, what is important is India is not a part of this global cooling pledge. However, India itself, in its domestic laws, has come up with a plan called Indian Cooling Action Plan. Okay, this has nothing to do with global cooling pledge, but India is not part of global cooling pledge, but India itself has something called Indian Cooling Action Plan. The aim of that Indian Cooling Action Plan is to reduce the power demand from cooling devices across the sectors by 20 to 25% by 2038. This shows India being a leader in mitigating the effects of climate change. Yes, however, global cooling pledge is another important outcome of COP28, so please have an idea about this. One more important outcome of COP28 is Global Decarbonization Accelerator. Okay, so basically this global decarbonization accelerator is a speedy way to transit to a cleaner energy. So it helps in transitioning into cleaner energy, and that is what is the global decarbonization accelerator. Under this global decarbonization accelerator, in the COP28, they came up with something called Global Renewables and Energy Efficient Pledge. Okay, so what is this global renewables and energy efficient pledge? You find it out. What is important is, again, India is not part of it. India as well as China is also not part of this global renewables and energy efficient pledge. One more outcome of COP28 is Altera, A-L-T-E-R-R-A, Altera. Now, Altera is a catalytic financial vehicle that is formed by UAE with a sum of $30 billion. Okay, the aim is to mobilize more fund. Okay, the aim here is from $30 billion you catalyze to bring more fund for climate action, and that aim of bringing more fund is almost equal to $250 billion. So that is what is the catalytic fund financial vehicle called Altera, created by the UAE. Okay, the last one is Dubai Consensus. This was the last day that they came up with this statement. This statement called Dubai Consensus is a balance between developing countries and developed countries. It is a compromise, not a balance. Why do I tell that it is a compromise? See, on one hand, they tell that we have to phase out the fossil fuels to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. But on the other hand, they also term the natural gas as transition gas. Okay, so if natural gas is a transition gas, at the end of the day, natural gas is also a fossil fuel. So how are you going to phase out the fossil fuels by 2050 to achieve net zero emissions? This is the problem of Dubai Consensus. However, what is very important is it is a compromise to balance the interests of both developing and developed countries. For developing, you need to phase out the fossil fuels so that they can mitigate the effects of climate change, because developing countries are highly vulnerable, whereas developed nations want to use the fossil fuels as long as possible because it is a main mode of economy for them. Hence, natural gas is termed as a transition gas. So this is what is the Dubai Consensus. So I hope you understood what were all the important outcomes of Conference of Parties 28. Try to do some extra research, go to the genuine websites, go to the UNFCCC website and see if you can get any extra information regarding this. However, climate change is an important theme, and hence you can expect a question to come from this theme for sure. Okay, now along with this COP28 and its outcome, there are other important initiatives happening around the theme of climate change. One such initiative is Just Energy Transition Partnership. Okay, JETP. Okay, basically this stands on an idea of phasing out coal. Okay, now why is this idea done by this JETP is because during the conference of parties 26 that happened in 2021, which is called Glasgow Dialogue, there was a philosophy called we need to phase out coal as soon as possible. Now this initiative is born out of this Glasgow Dialogue that happened in COP26 2021, and hence came this Just Energy Transition Partnership, which mainly stands on phasing out of coal. Okay, basically it is an initiative to mobilize $20 billion to phase out coal. It is a multilateral financing mechanism that is developed by developed nations. Okay, and the reason why this is in news is because they want India to be part of this. India is telling no, but they want India to be part of this. So that is why it is in news. So just have a more information about what is Just Energy Transition Partnership. Okay, understand which are all the nations that are part of this funding mechanism. That is very important. Okay, the next topic regarding the climate change is Climate Vulnerable Forum. This Climate Vulnerable Forum is again in news, so please get more information on this. This Climate Vulnerable Forum is a forum formed in 2009 with an headquarters in Maldives. It is a group of 58 countries and India is not a member. These are all group of highly vulnerable countries from Africa, from South America, from Pacific, from Caribbean, as well as from Asia. Okay, so please get more information of what is this Climate Vulnerable Forum. Okay, one more important aspect we should learn from climate change as a theme is Climate Performance Index. Okay, Climate Performance Index is an index brought by German Watch. It assesses the country's performance in 4 categories. One is greenhouse gas emission, the second is renewable energy, the third is energy use, and the fourth is climate policy. Now these are the 4 categories in which a country is assessed in order to give a ranking in the Climate Performance Index. Now if you take these 4 categories, you have greenhouse gas emissions that have 40% weightage, then you have renewable energy that has 20%, then you have energy use that has 20%, and climate policy that has 20%. So these are the 4 important indicators to assess the performance of climate by any country in the the Climate Performance Index. Okay, now India is ranked 7th. What is more interesting is the first 3 spots in this Climate Performance Index is given to no one, because no one has achieved that level of proficiency to be given that rank is what the Climate Performance Index is telling. Okay, so these are some information that you should know from the angle or theme of climate change. Now, after looking at all the thematics of climate change and their initiatives, now let us come into other environmental topics that can be asked in the prelims exam. The first is the keyword called land squeeze. Global land squeeze is a keyword that is making a lot of news. You should understand what it means. They can ask you the meaning, or they can ask you the context, or they can ask you examples inside it. So have some research on what is this global land squeeze. Global land squeeze is also known as green grabs. Okay, you are grabbing the land in the name of green projects. Hence it is known as green grabs. Now when there is a lot of projects or initiatives that are taken up to offset carbon emissions, now this grabbing of the land in that context is what is known as land squeeze. Whom are they squeezing it from? When you take more and more land in order to offset this carbon emissions, when you take more and more land to bring up more green projects, you're taking those lands from the farmers. So more and more land is going from the agriculture into these green projects, and this in turn is squeezing the farmers of land, which in turn will affect the food security. So this is the entire concept behind global land squeeze as well as green grabs. Okay, it is creating land inequality and making small and medium scale food production increasingly unviable. Okay, one more thing is the report titled Land Squeeze was published by the International Panel of Experts on Sustainable Food Systems. Okay, so this is the first important keyword that I'm telling you. The next topic is Sundarbans. As you can see, there are 2 headlines that are making news where Sundarbans is the central focal point. You can see that Sundarbans in Bangladesh is catching fire. The second headline is the barges that are carrying fly ash from India to Bangladesh is actually eroding Sundarbans. Okay, these are the 2 headlines that makes Sundarbans an important aspect for you to prepare. What should you prepare is, one, what are mangroves? What is the mangrove distribution percentage in India? What are the important mangrove trees? What all states have mangroves and what are the different names called in those states? What are the important species that are present within mangroves as well as more specifically in Sundarbans? These are something that you should understand. Okay, now Sundarbans is a group of Sundarbans as one, it is a mangroves, and Sundarbans as a group of 100 islands that are evenly distributed between human habitats and wild islands which are uninhabited. Okay, now the reason why they're telling that the barges are eroding these Sundarbans is because when these ships go, these ships are generating waves. These waves that are generated are ones that are eroding the Sundarbans. That is the accusation. Now, what is important from Prelims perspective is the ships that are going here are going along National Waterway 97. This National Waterway 97 has 14 stretches through which the Sundarbans are expanded, or 14 stretches across the Sundarbans. So this is something from Prelims perspective. One more thing is some of the important islands in Sundarbans that are important from India is one Sagar Island, another is Namkhana, another is Pattar Pratima, and another is Gosaba. These are the 4 islands on the Indian side of the Sundarbans that are again in use because of this erosion of Sundarbans. One of the Bengal minister has actually told that the Sundarbans is getting eroded because of this barges movement, especially in Sagar Island, in Namkhana, in Pattar Pratima, and in Gosaba. These islands are again important, so have an idea about it. So this is about the Sundarbans that you should have good clarity about. Okay. The next is a report that is submitted by Survival International. Okay, this Survival International has submitted a survival report which says, or which campaigns, that there are 6 heritage sites. According to UNESCO, we have heritage sites. Now, this 6 heritage sites have stolen the land from indigenous people. This is the accusation made by the Survival International in its survival report. Okay, basically Survival International is a NGO that campaigns for the rights of indigenous people, and it is claiming or alleging that these 6 heritage sites were taken away by removing the rights of indigenous people. So these 6 sites becomes very, very important. So have an idea where they come from. And among the 6 sites, there is one site of India as well. And that one site of India where the accusation is made is Kaziranga National Park in Assam. Okay, so have a good idea about Kaziranga National Park. It is not enough to just know about that it is in Assam. You should know about the species composition, what is the speciality, and etc. information about it. So out of the 6 heritage site, one is Kaziranga National Park. The next is Ngorongoro in Tanzania. As you can see the spelling, Ngorongoro in Tanzania is the 2nd heritage site which the accusation has been made. The next is Kahuzi Biga. Okay, the next is Kahuzi Biga in Democratic Republic of Congo. The next is Odzala Koko in Republic of Congo. The next is King Krachan in Thailand. And the last is Chintwan National Park in Nepal. Okay, so these are the 6 heritage sites where the accusation has been made by the Survival International that in the grab for the heritage sites, the land has been grabbed from the indigenous people. So this is about this topic. Okay, let us move on to the next topic. The next topic is an iconic tiger hill near Darjeeling is under a development threat. This is what is told by the National Green Tribunal. And the National Green Tribunal has also pulled up all the government departments of Sikkim for this Tiger Hill. So what is this Tiger Hill becomes very important. Tiger Hill is a famous watching site, or it is a famous pilgrimage site for watching sunrises, and it comes on the background of the Mount Kanchenjunga. Mount Kanchenjunga is the highest point of Sikkim Himalayas, and this Tiger Hill is a famous watch site for sunrises that looks to set below the background of the peak called Mount Kanchenjunga. And this Tiger Hill comes as a part of Senchal Wildlife Sanctuary. So I understand what are Senchal Wildlife Sanctuary, what is the speciality about it. Also understand in Sikkim what are the different rivers, what are the important wildlife sanctuaries, what are the important species. Understand this. So again, Tiger Hill is in news, which is in Sikkim. So please make sure that you collect much information about what are the protected areas in Sikkim. Alright, the next important topic is soil acidification. Understand what is soil acidification and why soil acidification occurs, especially in India. Question can come on that because as you can see, look at the headlines. Acidification may strip Indian soil of 3 billion tons of essential carbon, affecting soil growth and sequestration. Okay, now why is soil acidification happening? Please understand the reasons. Main reason is the rampant use of chemical fertilizers, but you should understand exactly what are the different reasons and what are the impact of it. Now, one major impact of this is the carbon that is stored inside the soil. Okay, the carbon that is stored inside the soil is given the name soil inorganic carbon, that is SiC. Whatever soil is stored inside the soil is given the name soil inorganic carbon. One such component of soil inorganic carbon is calcium carbonate. So inside the soil we have calcium carbonate. So in that calcium carbonate we have carbon stored. So whenever the soil becomes more and more acidic, this SiC, that is soil inorganic component, which is a stable pool of carbon inside the soil, this will start evaporating, or this will start oxidizing. Okay, so whatever carbon was sequestered inside the soil is lost, and the carbon becomes carbon dioxide and goes to the atmosphere. So because of soil acidity, because the soil is becoming more and more acidic, we are losing the soil inorganic carbon, and this is affecting our carbon sequestration. And one more fact says that 30% of India's cultivable land is suffering from soil acidity. So understand, you should generate, or you should develop the reasons why the soils are having acidic property. Okay, so this is about this topic. All right, the next is again a coral bleaching event. I've told you coral bleaching is something that when the algae called zooxanthellae dies, it results in whitening of the corals, and the whitening of the corals will result in the death of the corals in a few days. So there is going to be 4th global mass coral bleaching. Even the Great Barrier Reef is going to get affected. This is the 4th mass coral bleaching event after 1998, 2010, 2014 to 17, and now in 2024. So coral bleaching is something that you should understand. Distribution of corals is something that you should know. Great Barrier Reef, try to understand what are some of the unique characteristics of corals and coral distribution in India. Understand these points very, very clearly. So do that research, develop that 15 to 20 minutes of research, and you will get the points. Okay, so this is the issue. The next issue is to do with the United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea. Okay, here look at the headlines. They are telling that the countries hope to bring BBNJ or ICES treaty into force by 2025. What is BBNJ? BBNJ means biodiversity beyond natural justice, or natural jurisdiction, not justice, natural jurisdiction. Okay, biodiversity beyond natural jurisdiction. So as I have already told you in previous videos, what is this ICES or biodiversity beyond natural jurisdiction is, according to the UNCLOS, the first 12 nautical miles is known as territorial waters. The next 12 nautical miles is known as contiguous waters. From the baseline near the coastline, 200 nautical miles is known as exclusive economic zone. Anything that comes beyond this exclusive economic zone is known as high seas. Okay, high seas are something called global common. Global common means it belongs to everyone and it belongs to no one individual. Correct. So this ICES and the protection of this ICES that comes beyond the exclusive economic zone, that comes beyond the natural jurisdiction of any country, is what is this treaty about. So this beyond biodiversity beyond natural jurisdiction, or the ICES treaty, helps 3 things. One, it helps in expanding the protected areas in these areas beyond the natural jurisdiction, that is increasing the protected areas like marine protected areas in the high seas. The next is equitable and fair sharing of profits from marine genetic resources that comes from these high seas or these beyond the natural jurisdiction areas. The third is it also gives an environmental impact assessment framework for those who are interested in doing deep sea mining beyond these waters or in icy waters. So these are the 3 things that this treaty brings. But understand what is this treaty, why is this important, but more importantly, understand what is United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea, how it works. India is a part of UN clause, but India is yet to sign this particular treaty called BBNJ. So please understand this topic clearly. Okay, so this is about this topic. Let us move to the next topic. As you can see the headlines, there is 2 important headlines that you can see. One is UNEA 6. Delegates want more action on plastics. The second heading is UNEA 6. Extraction and use of world resources has grown 3 times more in 50 years. So what is this UNEA? UNEA is United Nations Environmental Assembly. Okay. Now every 2 years, all the 193 United Nations countries have an opportunity to collectively address critical environmental issues facing the planet. And this moment, every 2 years that this assembly happens, this is known as the United Nations Environmental Assembly, and the 6th edition is held in Nairobi, Kenya. Okay, so this is what is UNEA. That institution or that assembly of the United Nations countries is something that's very important, hence have some detailed information on this particular issue. The next topic that you should have an idea about is planetary boundary. Now this is an important keyword that they can ask you in the exam. They can ask you what it means, or they can ask the context, or they can ask the examples. So have a good idea about this keyword called planetary boundary. Okay, the reason why it is in news is because planetary boundary pioneer called Johann Rockström, has won 2024 Tyler Prize for Environmental Achievement. Okay, so one, you should understand what is planetary boundary very clearly. The second is, what is this Tyler Prize? As you know, prizes and awards have made a comeback in UPSC. You should know what is the meaning of this Tyler Prize. And Johann Rockström is someone who has won it this time. He is the pioneer who brought in the idea called planetary boundary. What is planetary boundary? It is a framework that determines the limit within which humanity can safely operate. Okay, basically it is a safe operating space for humanity on Earth. All right, now you can see one more headline here. The headline reads, 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries have been breached because of human activities. Okay, now by reading this, you should understand that there are 9 planetary boundaries, out of which 6 have been breached. So what are the 9 planetary boundaries? They can ask you in prelims by giving the list and asking you which of the following are planetary boundaries. So you should again have an idea. Okay, now the planetary boundaries that are 9 are as follows. One is stratospheric ozone depletion. The second is atmospheric aerosol loading. The third is ocean acidification. The fourth is biogeochemical flows or cycles. The next is freshwater change. The next is land system change. The next is biosphere integrity. The next is climate change. And the last is novel entities. So these are the 9 planetary boundaries, and this planetary boundary is a safe space. It is the framework that provides a safe space within which humanity can safely operate. So I hope you understood what is this concept. The next is a very small topic that you should know. The cockpit of Europe, which is called as Belgium. Belgium is called as the cockpit of Europe. Now this Belgium leads the European continent in becoming the first to recognize ecocide as a crime. So here, one, you should understand what is this key term called ecocide. Okay, they can ask you the meaning of it or the context, or they can ask you which country in Europe has executed this or implemented this. So understand a few detailed information about what is this ecocide. Okay, so this is about this topic. Let us go to the next one. The next topic is, as you can see, from restoring forest to river basins, 7 conservation initiatives across the continents recognized by United Nations. Okay, so 7 conservation initiatives have been recognized by the United Nations. Now they have been recognized under a program called World Restoration Flagship. Get more information of what is this World Restoration Flagship. It is an award given by the United Nations Environmental Program and FAO together. Okay, the award serves as a part of UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. All right, and what are the 7 conservation initiatives across the world which have been given the award? Please post that 7 names in the comment section. That is the assignment for you. Okay, now the next topic, as you can see, is La Nina in the offing? The shift from El Nino may impact monsoon summer in India this year. Basically, this topic is talking about 2 phenomena called El Nino and La Nina. Okay, as you know, El Nino will always reverse the water cycle. La Nina will always strengthen the water cycle. El Nino will affect the Indian monsoons. La Nina will strengthen the Indian monsoons. So you should understand what is the mechanism of El Nino and La Nina. It is very, very important. It has been making a lot of news. So understand this clearly. So that is what is this topic. The next topic is WWF demands the protection for naturally restored Mamudia wetland in Romania, Danube Delta. Okay, again, in international relation also, Danube Delta is very important, especially in Romania. We discussed about Constanta port. Okay, from Izmail to Constanta. Izmail is in Ukraine. That is also a Danube Delta in Ukraine. This Constanta port is also a Danube Delta in Romania. So this is where the grains have been transferred from Izmail to Constanta. However, there is one more wetland that is in news here, that is the Mamudia wetland. This also comes in the Danube Delta of Romania. This is again in news because of the protection. Get more information on that. Develop at least 1 or 2 level of analysis. Don't just know Mamudia wetland in Romania. Okay, you should get 1 or 2 more information on that. All right, this is about this topic. Let us move to the next one. Narmada river is in news. Anything and everything regarding Narmada you should understand. Where it rises, where it reaches the ocean, what are the important tributaries, what are the important dams. Very, very important. The reason is very simple. 2 things that are making news. One is Bharuch Industrial Cluster. Now this Bharuch industrial cluster is actually impacting the white gold along the valleys of Narmada. What is this white gold? It is the cotton that is grown there. So the Bharuch industrial cluster and the pollution coming out of this industrial cluster is actually affecting the cotton growing areas in the Narmada valley, which is known as white gold. That is the first news. The second is there is a construction of something called Bad Butt Barrage. This Bad Butt Barrage is actually affecting the life in the estuary of Narmada. This Bad Butt Barrage is actually destroying the estuary of Narmada, is something that is alleged by a lot of environmentalists. So Narmada is in news, so understand and learn everything regarding Narmada. Okay, the next concept, as you can see, is about the land of the fire and ice. Here we are talking about Iceland. In the international relations, I have spoken about a concept called earthquake swarms. You should have developed the topic on earthquake swarms. And again, here I am talking about it in news is because of something called Grindavik eruption. Okay, Grindavik volcanic eruption. This volcanic eruption is happening for the 4th time in less than 3 years. And the specific or some of the uniqueness of this eruption is it is an eruption that is effusive, it is not explosive. Okay, and the eruption will not do any type of damage. That you should understand. So what is happening is there is actually volcano tourism that is actually coming up here. And what exactly is the information on Iceland you should collect very clearly. For example, Iceland is present south of Arctic Circle in the North Atlantic Ocean on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. This is something that you should understand. Okay, however, it comes also in the boundary between Eurasian plate as well as the North American plate. Okay, it comes along the diverging boundary between Eurasian plate and North American plate. That is something that you should understand. So this is what is the land of fire and ice. Develop more information on Iceland. Okay, the next is another information that shows that amongst the environmental legislations in India, look at this, there is increase in offences under 4 of 7 environment related acts in 2022 report of NCRB. Okay, so one thing very important is you should understand all the 7 legislations very clearly, because one question will always come on the legislation and their provisions. Especially the most favorite area of UPSC is the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Alright, so I am just going to list out the 7 legislations just for your convenience. The first is the Forest Act and the Forest Conservation Act. Okay, the Forest Conservation Act 2023 has been making a lot of news. There are very high chances that they can ask you on that Forest Conservation Act 2023. So please understand some information about that. The next, Wildlife Protection Act, as you know, one question will always come on that. Understand the proper provisions of Wildlife Protection Act. Don't read the summary, read the bare acts. The next is Environment Protection Act. Know very well the provisions of it. The next is Air Act and Water Act, Noise Pollution Act, National Green Tribunal Act, and the last is Cigarette and Other Tobacco Products Act. Okay, now according to the 2022 NCRB report, 81% of the cases recorded in this particular violation of environmental laws comes under Cigarette and Other Tobacco Products Act. That is a very interesting fact. See, 81% of the violations is coming under the act of Cigarette and Other Tobacco Products Act. So again, this becomes important, so understand them clearly. All the legislations, read the provisions thoroughly. Okay, the next is Antarctica ozone depletion is again making a lot of news. As you can see in the headline, one headline reads, Antarctica ozone hole is now larger, thinner and may take longer to recover. The reason is because mesosphere has a special role to play. Okay, mesosphere is a layer in the atmosphere that comes from the altitude of 50 kilometers to 90 kilometers. And how does it have a role to play is something that becomes very technical, so don't worry about it. But what is important is, what is ozone, what is ozone hole, why does it happen only in Antarctica, and what is the effect of mesosphere. For example, mesosphere is the coldest layer of atmosphere on Earth, and it is the layer where the meteors will burn and the meteor shower is seen. Okay, recently also in Europe there was meteor shower that was very clearly seen, so this also happens in mesosphere. So this is something that you should know. Okay, one more headline says that WMO, that is the World Meteorological Organization, revives the ozone UV bulletin after 7 years. That also shows a steady recovery of ozone layer. Okay, but here what is important is understand what is World Meteorological Organization and what are the different functions of World Meteorological Organization. Though it studies meteorology, it is also the one that monitors the ozone, hence such functions should be known very clearly. Understand about what is WMO. Okay, the next topic is emissions gap report. Okay, here who is the one who will publicize the emissions gap report and what is the concept between emissions gap? Okay, what is that gap? What is the difference between these two entities? That is something that you should know. The reason why it is in news is because they have come up with a statement that only there is 14% chance of limiting the global warming to 1.5%. I'm sorry, there is only 14% chance of limiting the global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade, even in the most optimistic, scenarios. Okay, this is something of a warning to the entire nation. So what is this emissions gap concept and who releases this emission gap report is something that you should know. The next concept is Brazzaville Summit. Okay, it is also known as Three Basin Summit, and there was a declaration called Three Basin Declaration. Three different parts of the world came together to create this Three Basin Declaration. What are the three basins? It is Amazon Basin in South America, Congo Basin in Africa, and Borneo Mekong Basin in Southeast Asia. These three countries came together and they created something called Three Basin Agreement or Three Basin Declaration to conserve these basins, and this is what is known as Brazzaville Summit. Brazzaville is a capital of Republic of Congo. Okay, it is not Democratic Republic of Congo. Brazzaville is the capital of Republic of Congo. Okay, this is something that you should know. The next is Sikkim floods. So basically the Sikkim floods happened because of Glacial Lake Outburst flood concept. So understand what are these GLOFs, that is Glacial Lake Outburst conflict. I'm sorry, Glacial Lake Outburst concept. And the glacial lakes, what are the glacial lakes? They are moraine dammed lakes. So understand what are moraine dammed lakes or glacial lakes. Also understand what are the different erosional and depositional features of glaciers. Okay, the erosional and depositional features of a glacial landform. Please understand this. It can make a comeback because glaciers are always in news. So glacial landforms becomes very important. Okay, you have cirques, arides, you have glacial trough, hanging valleys, you have Roche Mountain, alright, you have outwash plains, eskers, erratics. So understand what are erosional landforms, what are depositional landforms within the glacial landforms. Okay, the one more thing is the glacial lake called South Lonak. That was the lake that outburst, creating the GLOF, that is the glacial lake outburst floods. So that is one more information that you should know. Okay, the next topic is, as you can see, Gujarat bans the plantation of Conocarpus trees, citing environment and health hazard. Okay, so this Conocarpus trees, in a local name, it is known as Saptaparni. Okay, Gujarat has banned this. The reason is because one, it guzzles a lot of water. It is very water intensive. It takes a lot of water. The second is the pollen from these trees is causing asthma and allergy. And the third is it is not palatable by the wild animals as well as domestic animals. So because of these three reasons, mainly this Conocarpus trees or Saptaparni is being banned in Gujarat. Okay, the next is delegates at UN Bonn Summit adapt new framework to reduce risks from hazardous chemicals. So what is this Bonn Summit? Please have some good idea about it. To give you some perspective about it, the aim of this UN Bonn Summit was to reduce and phase out the lethal agricultural pesticides by 2035. So that is the main objective of this UN Bonn Summit. Okay, so this is about this topic. Let us move on to the next one. The next one is about an institution called Central Empowered Committees. So the environmentalists or the non-governmental organizations have been irked, as you can see here, experts irked over revised structure of Central Empowered Committee. Okay, now the reason why they are irked is, let me give you a background context. Now, the courts usually give judgments on wildlife and environmental issues. There has to be some institution monitoring the implementation of these judgments that the court gives on wildlife and environmental issues. So, in 2002, the most famous judgment called T.N. Godavarman case, in the Supreme Court case called Godavarman case, the Supreme Court had asked the central government to create something called Central Empowered Committees. Okay, so the Central Empowered Committees are an institution under the Ministry of Environment, and they are mainly there to monitor the implementation of the orders given by the courts regarding the wildlife and environment. Okay, so this particular Central Empowered Committee, that is CEC, that works under the Ministry of Environment, was ad hoc. Okay, it was ad hoc. It was created in 2022 and it was an ad hoc institution. Now recently they have made this institution as permanent. The central government has made this Central Empowered Committee as permanent. Now why are the experts irked is because the structure Once they have made it permanent, they have changed the structure. Now the structure is as follows. There is a chairman, okay, and then there is a member secretary, and then there are 2 civil servants who are appointed by the Ministry of Environment. Okay, now one thing what they have changed is, before, when the Central Empowered Committee was ad hoc, there were also 2 members from the NGO who were part of the Central Empowered Committee. Now that space for the non-governmental organizations in the Central Empowered Committee is taken away. That is why the experts are irked. So I hope you understood this. However, collect more information on this so-called Central Empowered Committee. Okay, so this is about this topic. The next topic is about, look at this headlines: 6 billion tons of sand is taken annually from oceans, causing irreparable damage to benthic life. So here, this is brought out by a new data platform, United Nations Environmental Program, in collaboration with a organization called GRID, has come up with something called Marine Sand Watch. Okay, so basically this Marine Sand Watch is a data platform that assesses and monitors all the ocean deposits in high seas. Again, high seas is in news. Okay, that is the biodiversity beyond natural jurisdiction. We discussed what is IC. So this is in news. So the Marine Sand Watch is a data platform that is developed by GRID in collaboration with UNEP, and this shows that there is almost 6 billion tons of sand that is taken annually, which is causing irreparable damage to benthic organisms. So what are benthic organisms? Examples of benthic organisms you should know very well. Okay, so this is about this topic. The next one is diversity for restoration. This is a new tool, D4R. Okay, diversity for restoration. It's a new tool that can drive India's eco-restoration initiatives. Okay, so they can ask you in which context this is useful, so you should have an idea about it. This diversity for restoration was initially developed by Biodiversity International, and later it was modified to suit the Indian environment by an organization called A-Tree. What is A-Tree? It is Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and Environment. So that is what is known as A-Tree. Okay, so get more information on this. The next topic, as you can see, is toxic heavy metal is found in indigenous people living near oil fields of Peruvian Amazon. Okay, it is again in news because 3 facts are very important. Understand: high levels of mercury, cadmium and arsenic was found in the urine samples of these indigenous people. They lived in 4 river basins. What are the 4 river basins? Look at this. The 4 river basins are Corrientes, Pastaza, Tigre and Maranon. I'll repeat, the 4 river basins where this indigenous people resided were Corrientes, Pastaza, Tigre and Maranon. Okay, these are the 4 river basins. The next is, who are these indigenous people who are living in this Peruvian Amazon? One, they are Achuar, ACH. UAR, Achuar. The second is Quechua, that is QUECHUA. The next is Kichwa, that is KICHWA. And the fourth is Kukama, that is KUKAMA, Kukama. So these are the 4 indigenous people who lived or resided in these 4 river basins where the mercury, cadmium and arsenic levels in their urine samples was found high, and that is the heavy metal toxicity that you can see in this indigenous people. So understand that again properly. Okay, the next is an hydroelectric project. As you can see, the proposed Ni&ntilde hydroelectric project in Arunachal Pradesh has been scrapped. Okay, the Forest Advisory Committee under the Ministry of Environment has told the Arunachal Pradesh government to go back to the drawing board. So understand, one Italian hydroelectric project comes in Dibang Valley. What are the important wildlife sanctuaries or national parks in Dibang Valley? You should know. The second is, what is or who is this Forest Advisory Committee? What is it made up of and what are its functions? You should understand this very well. Okay, here again, Tangon and Dri. TANGO and Tangon and DRI Dri. These are the 2 rivers that are in use in this context of Italian hydroelectric project, because Tangon and Dri are the 2 rivers where this Italian hydroelectric project wanted to build run of the river dams. Okay, however, this has been scrapped, but understand the Dibang Valley and its importance, and the next is the Forest Advisory Committee. These are the 2 things that are important in this topic. Okay, one more thing that is making a lot of news is the Coalition for Nature. Okay, this Coalition for Nature is formed in COP15 on Montreal, and this Coalition for Nature was formed by Small Highlands Developing States, which are known as SIDS. So what is this Coalition for Nature and SIDS? Please make sure that you do some research. See, I'll give you 2 interesting facts about this Small Island Developing States. Small Island Developing States or SIDS host 19% of the world's coral reef. Second important fact is SIDS or small island developing states, they are responsible for the ocean area that is 28 times the size of their landmass. So if the size of their landmass is 1, they are responsible for 28 times that landmass in the ocean area. Hence, they are very, very significant for maintaining our ocean health and mitigating the effects of climate change. So please make sure that you understand what is this SIDS or small island developing states and the coalition for nature. Okay, the next headlines, as you can see, is erosion of Ganga threatens India's largest botanical garden in Howrah, West Bengal. And the botanical garden that is India's largest is given the name Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose Indian Botanical Garden. The speciality of this is, this garden was founded in 1797 and it has about 12,000 specimens as of 12,000 specimens, and these 12,000 specimens are of around 1,000 species. Okay, the 12,000 specimens you can see in this botanical garden can constitute around 1,000 species. This is considered the largest man-made plant kingdom, sorry. Okay, so this is considered the largest man-made plant kingdom. What is it? It is Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose India Botanical Garden. Again, do some research on this, understand what are the different botanical gardens, and this is the largest. So again, you should understand this. The next is GM mustard is making a lot of news. As you can see, the doctors demand the ban on crops, they also demand ban on crops and the approval of trial plantations. As you know, the Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee has given the approval for trial plantations, so the doctors want them also to be banned. So what is this GM mustard? Why is it called Dara Mustard Hybrid 11? The University of Delhi is the one that has developed this variety. It is based on the gene transgenic technology of hybrid varieties of Barstar and Barnase. So what is this Barstar Barnase gene system? These are something that you should research. Okay, again, it is an hybrid variety. Second, the hybrids are Barstar and Barnase. The next is, it is a transgenic technology where the hybriding happens between the Barnar and Barnase. What is the outcome that they are seeking for? The outcome that they are seeking for is, it develops tolerance for an herbicide called glufosinate. Glufosinate is something that is widely used as a herbicide, and to develop that tolerance to herbicide, you have come up with, this GM mustard that is known as DMH11. Now the problem, what happens is, the intention is good. The intention is to reduce the imports of edible oilseeds into India by growing GM mustard in India itself. But the drawback of this is, if we develop an herbicide tolerant, that is herbicide tolerant variety, then the usage of glufosinate is going to increase, and by using rampantly this glufosinate, this herbicide is going to run into the downstream consumers because the residue left on the plants will be more. This is the concern of all the doctors. That's why the doctors want to ban this approval of GM mustard. So please understand what is this Barstar, Barnase, what is Dara Mustard Hybrid 11, and what is this gene editing technology, and which university has brought this. These are the factual information that you should know regarding GM mustard. Okay, so I have given you the list of all the environmental topics that are important from the prelims perspective. Please develop 15 to 20 minutes of factual information on these topics by going to the genuine websites. I hope it was helpful, guys. If you please like this video, share, guys. Please share it. The more the subscribers, the greater motivation for me to do such quality content on a consistent basis. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Please do subscribe to Sudeep Verse, and please do share this video with everyone, guys. Thank you. I'll see you again with more quality content. Bye.